Hopefully everybody can hear me. Welcome this evening. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Before we move forward, though, I have to recognize our lovely fire exits in the back of the room. One there, and there is one off to my left towards the front of the room as well. So if there's an emergency, you know where to go. I need a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting. Peter, Mary Caitlin, all in favor? Aye. And first on our agenda this evening is public comments. Before I invite folks up, I did just want to do a reminder, which is actually on the screen right here, that each speaker will have 3 minutes. So we'll have a timer, and I'll let you know when there's about 30 seconds left, and then it will be the next speaker's turn. We'll call you up. Additionally, make sure that your comments are respectful. There shouldn't be any names disclosed or criticisms of folks that perhaps work in our district or students. So keep that in mind and just be respectful. No shouting, no outbursts, no unnecessary language. So just a reminder. Doesn't happen, but I'd like to do the reminder. So I think we have a group that was going to come up. Did you guys want to come up together so I can read all of your names? And I think you know that one person can talk, and then when you're done, we'll either restart the clock or we will stop you and then have the next person speak. So sound good? Okay, so I guess I'll read the list. And I think is it Layla? Favor? You can come on down to the microphone when you get up here. And if you want to come together, you can. Sydney Shug, Jessica Saturn Curley, Brooke LeBlanc, Natalie Rothberg, and Karina Fenton. And I apologize if I said your name wrong. And if you're at this podium, you just press the button and it turns green. And I will let me know when you're ready and we'll start the timer.
I'm ready.
You're good? Okay.
Hello, we are here to talk to you tonight as FHS juniors and members of Girl Scout Troop 63463. For our advocacy badge, we decided that changing district start times was a cause we were passionate about and one that we wanted to help support. My name is Kariana Fenton. This is Natalie Rothberg, Saturn Curley, and Layla Faber. Unfortunately, our other troop members, Sydney Shug and Brooke LeBlanc, couldn't make it today, but helped us work on the speech, and we're planning to talk about sports. At Fairport High School, the bell to start classes in the morning rings at 7:25 a.m., about an hour earlier than the school start time recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics, the AAP, at 8:30 a.m. According to an article from the AAP, adolescents experience a sleep-wake phase delay, which means that they tend to wake up and go to bed about 2 hours later than they naturally would have as a pre-adolescent. Their research indicates that teenagers should optimally be getting about 8.5 to 9.5 hours of sleep per night, due to the fact that teenagers have difficulty falling asleep before 11 p.m. Because of the change in their natural sleep schedules, in order to achieve optimal levels of sleep, they are best suited to wake up around 8 a.m. Out of the 100+ students we surveyed, over half of them claim that they get less than 7 hours of sleep a night, and out of those students, about 75% feel as though their schedule does not allow for enough sleep. In comparison, a poll from the National Sleep Foundation found that 71% of parents nationwide believed that their adolescent was obtaining sufficient sleep. This difference in perspective helps demonstrate the difference in knowledge between what teenagers are actually experiencing and what parents perceive their children to be feeling. The lack of sleep can have problems parents do not see, and it can impact students' mental health, academics, and life in a variety of ways. According to Stanford Medicine, sleep is believed to help regulate emotions, and its deprivation is an underlying component of many mood disorders, including anxiety, depression, and bipolar disorder. While one might not think everyone is affected that much by lack of sleep, or that it does not affect our school specifically, this is proved wrong by the 80% of students who we polled who claimed that their mental health has been negatively affected by their lack of sleep. According to the National Sleep Foundation poll previously cited, 28% of students reported falling asleep in school at least once a week, and a similar percentage said that they fell asleep doing their homework
30 seconds.
with similar frequency. At our school, almost 90% of students polled reported that a lack of sleep has negatively affected their life, but more specifically their academic performance. Personally, when I don't get enough sleep, I feel less focused in class and don't feel as motivated in general.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Whenever you're ready.
All right. During the midterms week, I stayed up late studying for my chemistry midterm. I knew I was going to be very tired in the morning, so I decided to drink an energy drink for my first period exam. Many high school students who don't get enough sleep often turn to energy drinks in order to get themselves through the day. This can often be fine in the short term, but for many students, it becomes an everyday habit, which can have negative effects on their health.
As you know, one of our school district's goals is to be at school every day. At FHS, there has been consistent messaging about how important it is for students to be on time for their first period class. Being at school is really important to our learning and our ability to develop meaningful habits as good students. Later start times would positively impact the big goal that would allow students to be more prepared for a positive learning experience. Later start times would also allow students more time in the mornings to not only do what they want, but also things that are important for their health. When students have to wake up early, as they do for our school, many find themselves rushing out the door in the morning, often without eating breakfast. Studies show that eating breakfast can have significant positive impacts, especially for students, as eating breakfast can improve attention spans in schools and is shown to have positive long-term health effects. Later start times would give students who wouldn't otherwise have the time to eat breakfast at home, or students who can only get to school at a certain time, the ability to eat breakfast at home or bite at school. A quick story time about me personally. The school traffic in the FHS has always been a topic of discussion amongst students and staff in the morning. Even if I woke up a few minutes late, I would always find myself practically running to my first period class since the traffic was so bad. I live 10 minutes away from school, and if I didn't wake up around 6:40 a.m., I wouldn't be able to make it to school on time. Seniors and parents driving in at the same time to drop their kids off does not help anyone else's case either. And it's not like those extra minutes I took helped either, because I was falling asleep doing my homework after a long day of school and extracurricular activities. This few-minute late snafu happened a few times this year, each time leading to my first period teacher yelling at me for not being serious about the class and to just get to school earlier, while I hadn't even missed any material. I already go to school earlier than other districts. We start at 7:25 in the morning. I feel as though I can't do my homework, activities, spend time with my friends, all while getting enough sleep my body needs all in one day without waking up early to go back to school. I'm a tired student trying to live a balanced life while still being on time to school.
Okay. Later school start times would also be a benefit to students in terms of driving. Drowsy driving is a major contributor to car crashes, according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. Drowsy driving is dangerous even if a person doesn't actually fall asleep, because research shows sleep deprivation leads to mental impairment that is similar to drunkenness. Many Fairport students drive to school so they don't have to wake up early in order to catch the bus, which for some comes as early as 6:30 in the morning, well before the time the AAP recommends for teenagers to wake up. FHS specifically has a tragic history when it comes to car accidents, and we know that that's something that administrators constantly have on their mind. Later school start times would allow students to be more aware while driving, but there would also be other benefits. For example, during a significant portion of the year, it is still dark outside by the time school currently starts at the high school. If start times were pushed back, it would give students who drove the opportunity to do so while it's still light out. While later school start times would have many benefits, there would also be challenges that the district would have to deal with. Changing the time school starts in the morning also means changing the time it ends in the afternoon. For many students who have packed schedules outside of school or who work right after school, this would pose some significant issues and would have to reorganize their schedules. However, later school start times could also present the opportunity for before-school activities, like used to be offered in elementary and middle school. Similarly, families that rely on older children for childcare would have to find an alternative solution. These issues are not easy ones to deal with, but we trust that the district would take issues like these into account before making a major decision, as we know they already have started to do by asking for parent feedback and holding workshops to discuss people's opinions. Other schools in our county, like Webster Central Schools, have already changed their start times, so Fairport would have resources to learn from about the actual practical effects of changing school start times, specifically in our area. In terms of sports, Fairport still competes with Webster in sports games, so that probably wouldn't be very much of a problem. We understand that changing school start time is no easy task and would have profound effects on Fairport families. However, we affirm that shifting school start times to align with medical professionals' recommendations would not only be a net good for Fairport families, but is also a necessary change to support students' physical and mental health in addition to their academic performance. Of the students we polled, about 75% said that they would also support a shift to a later school start time. We know that coming up with a plan to change school start times comes with many logistical challenges, but we as students really appreciate the district's focus on trying to work towards a plan that is best for students' health and success. We urge the district to continue considering changing school start times, and we thank you all for your attention tonight.
Thank you, all of you. Okay, next on our list for public comments is Paul Winter. Okay, I do not see Paul in the audience, so we will move on. So up next we have Claire Valentine, our student advisor, who will share lots of information about what is happening in our district.
Well, I have a joke for you guys, so that's good. Yeah, good. Why are skeletons so calm? Because nothing can get under their skin. Yeah, okay.
Every day she has it. That's good. Thanks, Claire.
Of course. For the update, in the past month at Fairport, we had the beginning of the second semester, as well as we had our indoor track team, who took selected runners and jumpers to a high league meet at Spire High School in Ohio. And to my understanding, this is their first year competing in such an event. A new school record was set for the girls 4x200, the girls 200, the girls 1600, and a sophomore Austin Babel excelled by running the Section 5 best mile of the year. To go along with that theme, our cheer team won counties by a wide margin and are also grand champs in their division. They're actually competing right now at Minerva, and I'm sure they're doing amazing. We hosted our snowball dance this past Saturday in the gym. The turnout was great, with 500 students attending. I'm sure there are a bunch of trees lying around the hallways, but we'll clean it up. And all of its success is really owed to the chaperones and administrators and students who helped this happen. And in honor of Valentine's Day, our Paws Club is selling gourmet lollipops, to which all proceeds go to Lollipop Farm. And Leo Club is selling flowers, and all of those proceeds go to UNICEF. Our Sources of Strength Club also held a Valentine's Day celebration after school today, which was filled with fun, friendship bracelet making, and hot chocolate. Our clubs really like to embrace the holiday. Another spotlight is our Fairport math team. Last week they had their last meet of the year, and they placed 3rd overall out of, I think, 10 schools. Senior Nathan Panic is their MVP and has gotten a perfect score at all meets this year, which is crazy. And about a week ago, the Rochester Youth Ambassador Council held a Friday forum in this room during the school day. Jake Dixon is a senior here, and he did presentations with his partner, Farrell Carey. The presentation focused on looking into Black history and taught how to identify strategies that can be used to confront current social issues. Throughout the day, many students and staff members listened to these insightful lessons, whether English teachers brought their classes or students just chose to go during their lunch periods. This taught a lot of people valuable lessons. And senior English classes got a special presentation from Ms. Hudak this week. Ms. Hudak works in the Career Exploration Office and shared different paths that seniors could pursue after graduation. This included all kinds of trades and different specifications in the workplace. Even for those committed on the college path, it was important for us to learn all the options that we could pursue after graduation. Sorry. And as we head into February break, our school Ireland exchange trip leaves tomorrow, bright and early in the morning, and our school London-Paris trip leaves Thursday. Both are incredible experiences. I'm going on the London one, so I can't wait to share with you guys the details of that when I get back. And that's all I have.
I know, thank you. Okay. Next up, it's me, the president's report. And Claire, a lot of the stuff you touched on, we actually had the opportunity to talk about at our legislative breakfast. So, yep. So, I'm going to use this opportunity to actually share out. The board was able, many of us, to attend a legislative breakfast on February 3rd. So, I'm just going to share some information. I asked everyone that attended to give me their feedback, so it is not just me sharing these points, but everybody on the team here. So on February 3rd, Lisa, Nicole, Brian, Mary Caitlin, and myself, and Brett, had the opportunity to meet with our state representatives at the legislative breakfast. The event kicked off with students from a variety of Monroe County schools advocating for increased mental health supports, career and technical education options, like Clara was talking about, the need for universal breakfast and lunch at school, and the lack of electric buses available or being manufactured, and the limit with current infrastructure moving forward. This was actually the first year that students had a voice and were included in the event, and I think everybody involved, including our representatives, felt that it was very impactful having students there. We also had the opportunity to meet with a number of representatives, so I'm going to just briefly talk about some of the key points that were brought up. Both Samra Broke and Jen Lunsford, who are our representatives, emphasized that the Assembly will not stand for the cuts in foundation aid. I know we'll be talking about our non-instructional budget today, and we talk a lot about that foundation aid and how exciting it was that we actually received a full amount last year. So I think many people were stunned when the governor came out with cuts to it. So moving forward, Samra took feedback from the group that I was actually in about pulling a group together from schools and the community, including RTS, that have already acquired electric buses to determine how it is going. The funding available for buses and infrastructure still is not currently aligned with the timeline that is put in place by our governor, so she recognized that. Additionally, Jen Lunsford, she also talked about the bus situation, and she said she is going to be focusing on getting districts more money, but sticking with the same timeline until something external stops it. External things could be lack of buses, the infrastructure not being ready, just a variety of things. So I think everybody is aware of the constraints that are out there and trying to be proactive moving forward. Additionally, some of us here had the opportunity to sit with Senator Schumer's representative, and they answered questions regarding federal funding models, particularly the issues inherent of grant funding. Again, something we talk about quite often, just in terms of restraints with grant funding. They discussed it at length. Some other topics that were included were federal support for universal breakfast and lunches, as well as UPK funding. A highlight for myself with my role, Regent Hale was there, and he shared work that the Board of Regents is doing surrounding career and technical pathways for students. So I know Clara mentioned that. I'm glad that we're doing it here as well. The group discussed the need for support for teacher preparation programs, particularly shifting towards teacher residency models, fellowships where educators are paid during their student teaching time, and how that would open the profession to so many more individuals. So I know those of us who went through a teaching program, we always kind of thought it was interesting that you have to pay a significant amount of money to student teach. So I thought that was interesting as well. He showed a lot of compassion and knowledge in expanding CTE programs and financial literacy. I know that's a big push as well, as part of in terms of the Blue Ribbon Commission's report. I think all of us who have seen him and met with him, he is definitely eager to learn, listen, and especially learn from the suburban districts about what challenges and needs we have, especially around CTE programs and the science of reading. Luckily in Fairport, I will just do a caveat, we are on our path with the science of reading, which was kind of reassuring to hear the focus from our representatives. So yay. At the end of the day, we were able to hear from different legislators and the regents about priorities this year's budget, especially addressing the governor's drastic shift on foundation aid and how our assembly members and senators are in strong opposition, which was great to hear. One of us mentioned that overall, the support our schools have from legislators from both sides of the aisle is amazing. And I know we said this last year as well. Doesn't really matter what party they are affiliated with, everybody seems to be going for the same goal. So heartwarming to me. There's bipartisan support for our schools and our students. There's differences in how people think we may get to certain points, but the partnership between the lawmakers and the school boards is something that we shouldn't take for granted. So I know personally I appreciated the opportunity to actually sit down and talk with folks, and I think they were able to learn as much from us as we are able to learn from them. So that is all I have for today. I was switching, and now we have.
Well, I was going to be bringing up foundation aid, but I think you talked about it, and just to jump in on that and to share from a superintendent's perspective on what foundation means to us and our district. It's one of the main areas where we receive funding. All of our school districts, in particular, how it impacts Fairport is my concern and our students. This budget season, and our governmental representatives, you said, they all characterized that the governor appears to have intertwined politics with this very important funding source. Fairport, again, like a majority of districts in our area, would receive less money under the governor's initial budget proposal due to the change she wants to make to the funding allocation. It's a complicated formula. I think there's probably like one person in this room who understands it. He's over there to the left. And there's some nuance to it. And that nuance pretty much slated Fairport to receive a whopping 0.5% on its foundation aid. A year to year, 0.5%. Now just think about what it takes to go to Wegmans or to get gas. We're supposed to continue to run our programming and do all the great things we do for our community on a 0.5% increase.
Well, and Brett, I often think about the price of living, right?
That's right.
Everything goes up. So we were hoping for more because, as we know, like you said, when you're shopping, when you're doing anything, costs are higher.
Yep. And removing these dollars, foundation aid dollars in particular, from a school is like removing the structural components of a building's foundation. Think about if you take a foundation in your house and you start shifting that around, and you take one brick and you move it to another place, and you just start shifting, it becomes a very inconsistent, unreliable foundation, right? Now that will impact our schools. That will impact Fairport youth and our school community and the value that our schools bring to our community without consistent, fully funded foundation aid. It is difficult for schools to plan from one budget cycle to the next, and most importantly, provide the necessary funding to address our school improvement imperatives if we don't have consistent foundation aid. Budgets are important, and it helps us be transparent. It helps us explain the budget process with clarity and purpose to our community. Our schools are charged and have the privilege, and I think every single board member up here would definitely assert it's a privilege to address the widespread needs such as learning loss, social emotional challenges that have been greatly influenced by the pervasive impact of social media, increased poverty, and trauma that we have seen in the wake of the pandemic. At its core, public education is our nation's greatest pathway for our youth to seize equitable access to life-defining opportunities. And when you're messing with foundation aid, that's what you're doing. You're impacting opportunities. You're impacting our ability to take this idea of public education, one of the pillars toward advancing our democracy. And you're playing politics with that. And I think that's a source of advocacy that the board and other superintendents will be doing during this budget season. It's humbling to imagine, again, all means all, right? And I know that we take that to heart. and I'm proud to be a part of a board. We'll be going in a few weeks to Albany, and I know that we're trying to schedule future meetings with lawmakers as well. So they have great clarity on what we hope and what we expect, and then they're going to take that message to the governor, and hopefully they'll be able to produce a budget that meets our students and our community's needs, and of course the board's priorities. That piece. So here we are. We'll be talking more about budget and foundation aid as we move forward. I think I'm on my presentation. I don't have my magic wand. Yeah. So one thing. Oh, do you want to jump? Yeah, absolutely, please.
Yeah, and one thing I just always like to highlight and come back to is foundation aid isn't just money that exists out there that we're asking for. This is our community's money that is paid in state taxes, that the state has set the expectation will return to our community in foundation aid. We're not out begging for someone else's. This is our hard-earned dollars of our community members that are paid to support the education of our community's children.
Excellent. Did you want to say something? Was somebody I thought somebody. Well,
No, I mean, we're
I know.
gonna report out after,
Okay,
so why don't you go
perfect.
ahead with yours?
All right,
Yes, yes, go
is your-
ahead with the
I don't have a
superintendent's
clicker.
report.
Yeah, I don't have my clicker, so I'm just trying to buy some time too myself. Sing and dance. So it was great seeing our students come to the table and talk about school start times. And I was able to communicate with students a few weeks back. There were about 7 or 8 students who wrote persuasive essays on school sleep times. We had 4 students here come today. And I know that the board was going to continue to try to find ways to get more information from our students as we move along in this process. But we had about 930 parents and caregivers share the responses through Parent Square. Top responses, and they aligned with what the students were saying. They were talking about research, the science of sleeping, especially for our adolescents. It's a real phenomenon that we are called to respond to. The mental health components, the academic and physical components, the increased motivation, those are all driven by research. And our students did a great job saying it, and our parents were saying it in the community input survey that we asked people to respond to. Community members are interested to know how are we going to manage specials and extracurricular activities outside of the school day, in particular athletics, practices, competition. What about transportation, clubs? What about students with outside jobs? How will the district and our community interact with outside organizations and manage after-school childcare and making sure that we're safely transporting our youngest students? And I think those are all priorities that we're going to continue to dig in as we move through. But this is just a sneak peek. The responses were overwhelming, and that's exciting to see. I think our staff, there was about 500 responses from our staff as well. So lots of data to interact with, and looking forward to those conversations. March Madness is close. And it's Fairport style, and nobody does it better than Fairport, and I'm excited. UPK Lottery is underway, and we'll be talking more about UPK Lottery and what that looks like as we roll out 20, is it 24, 25?
Has the application's gone out?
Well, this is happening this week.
Oh,
Yeah,
awesome.
it's all underway. Yeah.
No,
Well,
you didn't.
well, but again, I mean, we're way ahead of the game where we were last year, and it's only going to continue to improve. So we're adding that to the March Madness is UPK, right? And the Eclipse Week, stay tuned on that. We'll be communicating to our whole school community on how we're going to be sharing that moment. But we're going to be talking about it in March to prepare us. Do you know the date? April 8th, right? Yep. You know the chances for it happening in Rochester? 50%. Because of the clouds. But it's going to happen, but to the effect that it's going to happen. But it's going to add to the excitement. And I'm looking forward to being a part of that. Or
So
excitement in our schools, the learning.
It still does get darker, and you don't have the dramatic thing, but it's still going to.
Yes, right. But
It'll have its moment.
the eclipse watchers are going to want it to be in full effect. And it's,
We'll get on that, right?
okay, I'll see if I can order that. But you know who's been on it is our science departments, and we're looking forward to sharing all that great information in the future. Yep. drama and musical productions and art shows in a way that nobody does them like Fairport Schools. Brotherhood Sisterhood Week is in full effect. Planning is well underway. There'll be district-wide spirit days. We're back in business with the listening post. I'm having our seniors interact with our middle school students. It's exciting to see those connections being made. All fundraising will be geared towards supporting our Joey Fund, which supports our students right here in our Fairport community. And there'll be an outreach day, and that's an activity, an event that many of our students speak to as they leave our schools. So that's going to be exciting. And our sixth graders will be coming together during that week as well to, again, beginning the consolidation phase, and so they could start unifying as a class. Appreciate all the planning that has gone into that. The non-instructional budget is like the backbone of our district. It's part of the district I call it like the kitchen sink. Like, we all know how important the kitchen sink is, and we all know if the kitchen sink isn't working, right? We know when it's not working, but our kitchen sink is working in Fairport. We have incredible resources and infrastructure and people behind the scenes doing so many great things, and that's what the non-instructional budget is about. It's about the 303 acres, the 12 buildings, the 1.2 million square feet. Like, we always talk about how our buildings are being used, right? And that's what supports the instructional budget is what supports our incredible program. We talk about all the technology and the wireless access points and the increase in security and safety. Those are pieces that our community expects and we're called to serve. Transportation is another part of the non-instructional budget, and what's that?
No, $1 million. That just struck me. Like,
isn't
wow.
that something? Yeah. I mean, and that takes resources, and it's employed with great precision, and that's what we're going to be sharing tonight. And part of that is a video that speaks to major components of our non-instructional budget.
The best part for me is actually seeing the kids interact with their teachers. I just love that part of my job because I just see the excitement not only on the student side but also on the teacher side. Seeing those little faces come in every morning really makes my day, kind of brightens up the day for me. So the key thing for me is I meet weekly with our principal. We go over what's happening in the building throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the year. So we have a planning process. We like to have a lot of systems in place. So the communication is key between him and then I relay a lot of that to our front office staff here. Oh, it's pretty rewarding when we have something that comes across our desk, or a phone call, or a parent that comes in is in some type of, whether it's crisis mode or just stressed, whatever the fact is. We know that we have members in this building that we can call on for assistance, and we can look to each other as well if we don't have the answer, and that's the rewarding part, making sure a family we have met their needs, and when they leave, they feel good about where they are.
Good morning, Jefferson Avenue School. This is Maureen. Can I help you?
We're an integral part of what makes the school run. Without, the clerical, the bus drivers, without transportation, your students wouldn't get to school. They wouldn't get home from school in a safe, in a safe way. We, do everything that we can to help make sure that everything runs smoothly. And I think without us behind the scenes, everybody wouldn't be able to succeed in their roles in the building.
The Century Guardian program is very important, and I'm proud to say that I'm the first Century at Northside. I'm also proud to say that I come from a great background. I was a law enforcement officer, and when I talk to people in the community and I talk to either current law enforcement or retired law enforcement, I try to say, hey, come over. Come work for Fairport Central School District. It's a great great place. I thought I retired and I'd be home, right? Just be a stay-at-home mom. I have children in this district that I, as a mom, not even an employee, feel so safe having my kids walk in the building, knowing the centuries that are now being hired. When you have like all of those kids, because I don't just have a classroom, right? I have a whole building. And I feel like those kids are my kids, all of them. You know, I may not get to know everyone, but I do get to know the ones that, you know, might need an extra support. So I love helping, you know, the support staff as far as like mental health support. Just knowing that those kiddos, if I see them in the hall, they need an extra, like, great job. And I think that's part of being a Century. Like, it's not just one singular focus. You're really helping these children in every aspect of their day.
Three years now, I've been driving a bus. I've had the same kids now for 2 years, so that's been fun. I've been having a blast with it. A lot of people say, why? And it's like, well, the kids are funny. I'm the first face they see in the mornings, and I'm probably going to be the last face they see in Fairport at the end of their day. And their days are long. They start early and they, you know, finish up late. So to have a smiling face and talk to them by their name kind of reassures them. I've been in Fairport since 1991. I've paid my taxes, so it's kind of like I pay myself to work. By having people from Fairport driving for Fairport is an integral part because we have a vested interest in our own community. And safety is the key issue in regards to transportation, both on the bus, off the bus, and around the bus. I mean, just so far this year already, I've driven 7,000 miles. I've never left Fairport. So, you know, that just, I guess that just, you know, driving around town, you know, for 7,000 miles, 6 hours a day. So 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the afternoon, puts a little bit of miles on. So that's the investment that the community is doing for the people that we have here in Fairport taking care of our children.
You know, I think the neatest thing about all these professionals is they have all bought in and invested in this idea of building relationships and connecting to students' experiences. And I think having our, you know, centuries, spotlighting them, there's over 14 different public safety entities represented in our century group, right? And they're there to interact and connect. And I think that was the board's expectation and priority as we brought centuries on. And all of our staff members do their part in making connections. More than ever, it's needed in every corner of our organization. You see our timeline. I'm not going to go over every single bit of our timeline. I'm just going to point out between March 19th and April 16th, there is going to be opportunities for us to engage with the community. I'm going to be inviting community members in to get under the hood of the budget, to really look at some of the factors that influence our budget. We're looking at 2 dates. March 27th, we'll be talking about the expenditure side of the budget, and then on April 10th, we'll be talking about the revenue side. And I think that's just another way for us to try to engage our community, for those who want to know the X's and O's, if you will, of budgeting and the factors that influence budgeting in our school. And we're looking forward to getting that information out. We're going to ask people to sign up and commit to 2 nights, and we're hoping to get between 25 and 50 community members to again learn, and we can learn from them as well and some of the questions that they might have, and hopefully demystify some of the pieces of our budget in another way to outreach. So I'll be looking forward to adding that component to this timeline as we move forward. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to sharing our presentation tonight.
Thanks. Okay, next up we have our board committee reports. I know we might not have something from every committee, but I just did want to give folks an opportunity if there was anything you wanted to bring up. Nope. Were you going to say something? Okay, so the next thing, yeah, I was going to move on, but I did want to give the floor to Peter next.
Thank you. Not a committee report, but just want to formalize and probably a little bit TMI, but I hope to provide just a brief explanation for the decision. Being a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we have an unpaid clergy. And so periodically they change leaderships. And about a month ago today, I was asked to be the bishop of a new congregation of about 150 weekly parishioners. And knowing somewhat about what that takes, it takes about 10 to 14 hours a week. In making the decision to accept that request of leadership, I have decided not to run for re-election this year. And so I will save my comments about what this role has meant to me over the course of the 12 years I've serviced, but I just wanted to know there's rumors out there and make it formally known that I won't be running for re-election.
I start crying? No, we appreciate all that you've done, and I think I've said this many times. Your congregation has a gift. They are very, very lucky to have you. A little jealous, but I think all the stuff that you've done prior to exiting, and you still have time left to do more, has been very impactful. So you're finishing out the term.
Peter, congratulations, and I look forward to honoring and recognizing your great leadership and service next several months.
Because you're not leaving. Okay. Next up, we have our treasurer and investment update. Matt.
Okay, thank you and good evening. Tonight we have the update for the month of December 2023. We had a beginning general fund cash balance of $111.6 million, receipts of $3 million, consisting mostly of state aid, and disbursements of $12.4 million for an ending cash balance of $102.2 million. Of the $102.2, approximately $100.5 million is invested in a mix of treasury bills, insured cash sweep, money market accounts. Trending revenues and expenses, very similar in terms of prior year at about $99.4 million in revenue, consisting mostly of taxes and state aid, and expenses to date of $59.1 million. Again, trending very similar to prior year as we look at those comparisons on a year-to-year basis as we proceed throughout the fiscal year. And that is the summary for the month of December of 23.
Thank you. Yep, and next we have our presentation. So as Brett mentioned before, we're going to do our 2024-25 non-instructional budget.
Got to put that in rollers. Good evening. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present with Assistant Superintendent for Business, Matt Stevens, the non-instructional budget. I just want to say thank you to Matt and his team, the administrators are here present that are part of building this budget. It takes a complete team effort. It also takes amazing clarity from our Board of Education, and that is greatly appreciated. I'll get into that in a little bit. Again, the non-instructional budget is our backbone behind every great experience. As a caring, dedicated professional, there are large amounts of resources dedicated to the functioning of our organization and, of course, our programming. We're going to be reviewing some budget goals, the governor's proposal for school funding, give a little bit of history on state aid, talk about some trends that we've seen relative to budgets, tax levy, and our tax rates. We're going to be reviewing components of the non-instructional budget and a voter proposition that we'll be recommending, and then there'll be an opportunity for board discussion. Mr. Stevens and I will be interacting and going back and forth throughout the presentation, and there'll be opportunity for questions, and please, if there's clarifying things that you need, please let us know as we move What's that? Learning targets. That's what we do. Very clear. Very clear. And it starts with the board's clarity and the board's goals. We were fortunate to pass our budget last year, and as soon as the budget was passed in May, we started hitting the ground talking about what are going to be the goals, and that's what we spent the summer on into the beginning of the school year, into the fall, and the board prioritized our instructional priorities, starting with universal pre-K, getting our students in sooner, getting our families in sooner so they can become integrated in our community early and very often. Looking forward to developing that this budget season, making sure that our resources are focused and prioritized on teaching and learning. We spent a lot of time talking about multi-tiered systems of support, making sure that our curriculum is aligned and that we have programs that support the social, emotional, and academic needs of all of our students in a very systematic, organized way. And you'll be seeing dollars allocated towards that imperative. And one hallmark trait of our incredible school district are the programs and the student-centered, focused programming, whether it's at the elementary school to the middle, and electives and co-curricular activities, making sure that that continues to be a priority. As Peter Forsgren usually says, that's a lot of bang for our buck in those extracurricular activities and co-curricular activities. So that's going to continue to be a goal. But this idea of keeping long-term fiscal sustainability at the forefront of our budget process, so community always knows what our fiscal realities and goals are, and making sure that we're investing in modern, environmentally and sustainable and safe facilities. This is the board hearing our community saying, continue to invest in our facilities, continue to make our environments engaging, even if it doesn't include a capital improvement project. And again, that will be part of our conversations as we move forward. So I'm going to have Mr. Stevens come forward to talk a little bit about the foundation aid from the governor's proposal. Great.
Thank you, Mr. Provenzano. So next, we'll just kind of give a quick summary of the governor's proposal and what that means for state aid to the district. Overall, you can see it calls for about an $825 million increase to school aid. About $507 million of that is related to an increase in foundation aid. Again, foundation aid is the largest general operating aid for school districts. Embedded into that 825 too, I just wanted to kind of draw a note, about $100 million of that is actually a shift from the federal UPK funding over into the state source. So not necessarily an increase for schools, but more a shift in the funding source from federal over to state. So, if you kind of think about that, it's about a $725 million increase to school aid without that shift of the UPK funding. And then, so what's that mean for Fairport in relation to the foundation aid? About $151,000 increase, or 0.5% on our foundation aid. Again, we continue to talk about that. And we've seen large increases as they fully phased foundation aid in over the past couple of years. So continue to advocate for that formula to be funded, one, according to the formula, and hopefully push for more additional foundation aid. Because you can see within the proposal, there is a proposal to reduce the inflationary factor used under the formula, about 2 percentage points down from the current 4.1%. As well as eliminating safe harmless. So that piece doesn't impact Fairport at this time. However, that could impact several districts, about 45% across the state. That could result in a reduction of state aid on a phased formula. Good news in the proposal is there's no proposal this time to change the expense-based aid formula funding. We've seen that in the past, a proposal to change the formula. However, not in the sense that relates to our transportation aid, BOCES aid, our building aid, our private and public excess cost aid, a couple of the big pieces we see there that are generated based on expenses that we have generally in the prior year, or as it relates to building aid, it'd be related to any capital projects that we have had approved and completed or partially completed, as in the 2019 project that's starting to generate some building aid. So overall, with the expense-based aids, it generates about $2.2 million in an overall increase for Fairport. Now, big piece of that is supporting the expense side of the budget, where we'll see some debt come on for the 2019 capital improvement project of about $1.7 million. So of that $2.2 million, about $1.7 is related to building aid coming on in 2024-25. So here's just a kind of charted summary over the years of our foundation aid. You can see in 2021, 2022, 3, and 4, we had some larger increase in foundation aid. That's when the 3-year phase-in to fully fund began. And then 2024-25, you can see just a slight increase. If you remember, it's showing there a little bit higher than the 151,000. That's because if we remember last year before budget was final, there was a link to high impact tutoring of about $450,000 that was going to be based on us spending funds, and that got, when the final budget was done, we were through our process, that was wiped out, so it just became part of the unrestricted foundation aid for schools. So overall, our 24-25 draft of about $53.8 million related to the foundation aid and the expense-based aid increases. This is just the information on a chart. We saw the large increases over a couple of years, and now similar to back from 18-19 through 21 of a flatter increase at this point in time. So next is just a historical look at our budget percent increases year to year, tax levy and tax rate. A quick note, in 2012-13 is when the tax levy limit was implemented. That's the 2%.
Matt, I know sometimes there's confusion with the levy and the rate. Do you mind just kind of?
I'll jump right into
Thank you.
Yep. So in 12-13 is when the tax levy limit was implemented. That's what's otherwise known as a 2% tax cap. However, there is a formula that's behind that can result in a tax cap over 2% or under 2%, depending on allowable exclusions. So our school budget, the percent increase, that's the increase in our expense side of the budget year over year. And you can see 23-24, last increase was 5.31%, and then 5-year average of a little over 3%. Tax levy and tax rate, you'll notice two different percentages. So what do those two mean? The tax levy is the amount of money we collect from taxpayers to support the revenue side of the budget. And once that limit is set, that will be the amount that can be collected. It doesn't go up or down depending on where assessments come in. If the tax levy is set at X dollar amount, that would be the dollar amount we collect. So that's the amount we bring in from the community to support the revenue side of the budget. The tax rate is actually the increase in the per thousand tax rate that calculates someone's taxes that will be owed. So you can see the percent on the tax rate increase is slightly under the tax levy increase, and that's because when there are new tax, when the tax base increases or new homes are built or assessments go up, that can then in turn drop the tax rate increase for homes so that it's equalized across the community in terms of what the district collects from each home or taxable property. So that's just a kind of a summary on the historical pieces of budget, rate, and levy.
Sorry, can I ask a quick question on the foundation aid chart just before we start getting into the specifics of this budget? So the low increase from from last year to this year, is like you said, it's kind of like in line with the low increases from the past. The low increases were kind of expected because the phase-in is complete, but just not. We weren't expecting it to be this low, right? Because of the governor's budget.
We were not. It's probably about 500,000 to 700,000 below what we would have anticipated, based back on November data, and if that formula was running according to law and not being proposed to be changed.
Okay. Yeah.
It's about a $500,000 to $700,000 difference from what we would have expected back in November based on database information, assuming the formula was not being proposed to change.
And that's the point of advocacy when we talk about going to see our lawmakers. You know, that's what we're trying to get to, at least to where we were last year, because that's, you know, that impacts how we do business and how we provide the services that we're able to provide.
So we're not expecting those, like, in the future we won't get those $2-3 million leaps that we were seeing during the full phase-in, but we should be seeing more increases than what's proposed now. Okay.
Yes. So back where you see the flatter increases, that's when they were not funding foundation aid by the formula.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not that we would expect that type of an increase for 24, 25. That's just those years reflect back when the formula was not running according to how it should be. And then finally in 2022, 23, when we see that larger increase, it started to 21, 22, it started to run according to the formula.
The actual formula.
The first year phase in was a little bit less than the next couple of years for us, but now it's not proposed to run at the.
But what the governor is proposing is, again, to just change the game change the rules mid-year, like change the game while we're trying to make long-term decisions that impact our educators and our children.
Correct, and this change will impact future year's foundation aid if it goes through, because it'll, yes.
Mary, I don't think you can understate that when you're visiting and lobbying, right? That if you expect us to do long-term planning, we need a formula we can count on, right? That it's not going to change every year and adjust. We need to know what the formula is. We thought we did, and we can make plans accordingly. But the districts have never been there for, 20 years, right? We've not had a formula we can depend on.
And it's particularly upsetting if someone runs their campaign for governor on the basis that they fully funded foundation aid. And then now
change the definition of fully funded.
That's right.
It's changing that.
Formula.
It's frustrating, and it feels like it's pulling the rug out from us when we thought we could make some longer term planning done, that we're back to fighting this again.
I think that's what our lawmakers, their sentiments were last week. This came out of nowhere, and is this wrapped up into some other negotiating purposes that occurs?
Oh, I get to be louder. Anyway, when we were meeting with the governor, with lawmakers in December before the budget came out, or the budget proposal came out, all of them were like, cuts to school aid are off the table as far as they're concerned.
Yeah.
Like, again, bipartisan support is just like, that's not going to happen. You got it fully funded. We're going to keep it. And then we're fully funded at a different rule, at a different formula. And this speaks nothing of the larger changes that we're lobbying to make, for advocating to make to the financial aid, to the foundation aid formula as a whole. But that's a whole other conversation beyond just the long-term planning.
But when you're trying to
issues.
recruit the very best essential workers, transportation, sentries, buildings and grounds, mechanics, you need funding sources, and those workers need to have a decent competitive wage, and this is how one of the ways that we fund that. So there's lots at stake, because behind every great thing that we do is a individual.
And it's across it's every district across the state, which I think sometimes we just focus on here, but that's why I think all the districts are on the same page.
That's the powerful thing about the advocacy. There's so much alignment,
Yep.
and we have great partners. Dr. White, did you?
Oh, it just feels a bit like we're playing a game again, that if we're fighting this battle, then we're not having the bigger, more substantial conversation about updating the formula, because the formula is still written for over a decade ago and doesn't reflect our current school population nor our needs. And that should be the conversation we're having, so that we're better planning. And it feels like this is almost like this diversion. Okay, you have to fight this for this year, so we're off track. And it's
well, that's where I was talking about what public education is. And I think that's where my mind was. It's like, if we talk about we want access and opportunities, if we want to grow our government, if we want to grow critical thinkers to make the world a better place, that's what public education is about. It's all students. And when you're messing with that formula, that's what you're messing with. And so that was my point.
If we want to feed kids, I mean, we can't even have these conversations when we're fighting for what we should be, what MC, what you said, this is taxpayers' money. This is your money. This is our money that we have already paid to the state for education.
So as we build a non-instructional budget with those very important pieces in mind, and those will continue to evolve as we move through the budget process, this is about the non-instructional budget. You saw a great video that spoke to our transportation, our facilities, our buildings and grounds, our technology department, our sentries, it's district office level administration, community relations. These are the individuals, or these are the pieces behind the great things that we do here, and we're all proud to be a part of it. And we're going to be talking about those components in the non-instructional budget here. The first piece is the general support. And I'm not going to go over every single line, but I'll go over some notable ones. You'll see a negative 35% or almost 36% decrease. And that's because there was a change in staffing in that line. And I think that was due to a consolidation of a position. I appreciate the board's willingness to reflect on how we could be efficient, but still produce quality outcomes. And I think Sarah Driscoll's doing an amazing job with that. I don't mean to call you out with that, but that's where you see that reflected. So and thank you to the board for recognizing that. And you'll see 11% increase in the auditing pieces. And I think that's just the demands of the positions. The contracts have become more intricate, more involved with the internal and external and claims auditors, and we need to be prepared for that. We have an internal person who manages that piece. So that's why, again, we needed to make an adjustment there to meet the demands of that position. You'll see a almost 7% increase in tax collection, and that's pretty much the town and the county passing on costs to us. Again, the non-instructional budget is the cost of doing business, and we interact with those agencies, the town and county, and of course there's fees that are associated with printing and mailing, and that's why you'll see that increase there. In that overall, you'll see 11% increase in public information, and I think that speaks to the commitment of making sure that we increase our communication, increase our recruitment, making sure that we're doing all we can. You've seen an increased presence and definitely quality of the amount of work that we're pushing out in public information services, and always trying to improve with that. And so you'll see an 11.8% increase in that line item in the general support. Operation of our physical plant. Again, 303 acres, 12 buildings and 1.2 million square feet. Those numbers resonate, and it's like my favorite time of the year to say those numbers, because it just speaks to how we're always in awe. And I think the board is always seeing, and they're always mentioning, like, we went to Martha Brown at 8 o'clock on a Friday night, and people were walking in and out. People are going in and out of Minerva Deland in the pool area, using the pool. People are like, there's a pool? Yes, it's always being used. Our fields and facilities, high school is a place where there's great activity, and there's care and maintenance of our operation and plant. The operation custodial staff, still trying to recruit and retain our custodial staff. They're so important for the amount of usage that occurs in our buildings. This also, the increase in the operation plan includes increases for insurance, storage container rentals, supply costs, like for our cleaning supplies, our filters, our HVAC filters, trash liners, paper products. All that is in the operation of our plant. And that's where you see the 5%. The maintenance of our plant, the 26.34% increase. Again, that speaks to a $350,000 increase that the board would like to continue to have us invest in our facilities, from water coolers to general maintenance requests, from lighting in parking lots, or things that pop up in our buildings. The board wants to make sure that we're being very responsive, and that's where you see that $335 increase to meet that goal, which is part of a budget goal. And you'll see also in that line a $385,000 increase. It's an equipment request related to vehicle replacement. Vehicles are reaching their useful life. If we don't purchase new vehicles, then there's an opposite side of that, of repair and maintenance, and you try to maximize trade-in values just like we do with our own. So we're looking to replace some of those equipments. That's where that 26% increase comes from. Security of plant, we see the value all the time of our sentries and our guardians in our buildings. We're proud of the fact that they're in all of our schools now, thanks to the Board of Education. Their presence outside of school hours. Frequently we'll get calls outside of school hours. Sentries are supporting the safety and security of our all of our facilities. There's also the need to have support for our Director of Safety and Security. So you'll see a line item in there to have like an assistant, if you will, to support Sam Farina in those efforts. And of course, security of the plant also includes surveillance, camera, etc., to make sure that we're able to protect and monitor our investment. General support, the central data processing and tech services, that's pretty much, again, we talk about 700 staff computers to do and apply their craft. We have over 5,000 Chromebooks available. We have 900 wireless access points. All that stuff requires maintenance and upkeep. We have computer services in that central data processing. We talk about, we all know about Parent Square. We all know about School Tool. We know there's a sub-calling system. All the pieces in the back computer end, the safety and security database that we have is all in that line item as well, and that represents a 26% increase in that line. Insurance is another one where there's a 12.92%. 2019 project, there's been an increase in property valuation. Our projects are completed, insurance adjusters come in, and there's a need to adjust because the property values have increased because of the quality of the facility at this point. And again, that's just the cost of the upkeep and maintenance of our facilities. General support, Board of Education. Board of Education is a volunteer position, and your service is incredible. The line item there represents the amount of professional development, conferences, workshops, board meetings, budget votes, etc. So, and again, you'll see a decrease in there because there was a consolidation of a position. Business administration, you'll see a 4.1% increase because, again, the offset in the finance department and the auditing department, trying to meet the demands of that office and the central services as I went through the increase in the operation, maintenance, and security of our facility. The total general support is 13.23% increase.
Okay, next we're going to talk a little bit about transportation, benefits, debt service, among the next few pieces of the non-instructional budget. So again, transportation variables, fuel, oil, bus purchases, a couple of different pieces in terms of transportation, both in district, out of district, private parochial schools, homeless transportation, our summer school transportation. Those are some of the pieces that flow into the different variables for our transportation budget. So first, district transportation, you see about a 2.6% increase in that line. Within there, we have a reduction in our contract transportation. We've been able to shift some more things into district for wages. Still kind of balancing between the two of those pieces for district wages versus contract transportation as needs arise. We still want to try to maintain a budget line for contract transportation in the case that we could need that in the future, continue to maintain our relationships with those vendors there. Buses are also within the district transportation piece, and we'll get to the next slide to talk a little bit about the bus purchase funding. But here it's about a $2.4 million bus purchase, less $40,500 in trade-ins for 9 vehicles. Overall, it's a final general fund increase of about $146,000, and we'll talk about the bus purchase reserve fund and how we can utilize that to help mitigate and offset the tax impact overall for the exclusion of buses there. We're on about a 10-year replacement cycle. As a whole, we have over 100 buses in the fleet. So again, 9 buses, 971 passenger buses recommended for replacement for next year. Also within the budget is the purchase of 1 EV electric bus to be offset by about $400,000 in a grant. That leaves about $125,000 local share for the EV bus. Plus, there would be some slight infrastructure work to put in a charging station for that bus. So still pending the grant receipt or approval on that. So depending on whether or not we receive that, we'll determine whether or not the bus gets purchased in 24-25.
Matt, just quickly, do you recall, sorry, it's probably a little unfair, the price of a bus pre-COVID versus now?
Yep, so they're about double. So,
yeah, so it's double, right? 5 years.
Well, double from, I'm sorry, let me stand corrected there. Double back to when we first purchased these buses. So they're about $100,000 when purchased, and now they're about $206,000. We have seen them grow even more so from pre-COVID. We've seen that growth take place over the past couple of years.
I think we saw numbers like 60,000 increase in the last 2 years, something crazy like that.
Yep. So the production of the buses themselves is increasing for districts because we've, again, 9 buses proposed for next year. Now 71 passenger. Sometimes we're able to have within our cycle the smaller buses that can help reduce some of that cost, but even those buses are increasing.
Matt, not to put you on the spot, and John and Pete, not to put you on the spot, but you guys may know too, that rise in bus prices that's been happening. Is that gonna is there any site that it's gonna go up like another 30,000 next year? Is there any site that this is gonna start leveling off? Is it just roll the dice and see what happens next year?
If you know the answer to that, I want.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, I think we would anticipate costs to rise, but not unknown in terms of how much we would see them rise.
Okay.
Just in terms of cost for production and I mean, anytime in producing
like a
equipment,
natural ceiling to
there are
something.
people building buses and
Isn't that the case in Wegmans though too? Like you go to
Inflation.
Wegmans and you're spending money like where did that money come
Yeah.
from? Like, so I think that's just the trend that hopefully we start seeing leveling off.
I just didn't know if there was any sense if there's like a natural ceiling to a diesel bus, if it's gonna level off, or if it keeps going up.
No.
Probably not.
And Matt, just to be clear, the purchase of the one EV bus is dependent on the grant.
Yes.
So we reevaluate that decision if the grant does not come through.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So there will be no purchase order put into place in July if we do not have that grant.
Okay. I think that's
That
important to
it'll be
make.
pending when that grant's received.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
The board will be a part of that process.
Yeah.
We'll see, there might be some sign-offs on that too. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, great point. Then we have the garage building. That would just basically be utilities repairs to the building itself. Just no increase in that line. Contract transportation, again, about a $500,000 decrease in that line. Then contract transportation through BOCES. We do utilize BOCES for some special needs transportation, and just a slight decrease in that line as well. We've, again, tried to use more in district, plus contract transportation sometimes is running short on staff as well, whether it's BOCES or the outside vendors. So, we're sometimes put in positions where we have to grab a bus and pull somebody in to just try to make that run work or happen. So overall, about a 3.54% decrease in transportation, again, mostly related to the contract transportation pieces. Here's a summary in terms of the bus purchase funding. So overall, like I mentioned, $2.4 million total cost. That does include the EV bus in that number as well. So it's about $1.9 million plus the $525,000 for the EV bus. Less trade-in allowance. So we have 2.392 for the net cost. And how is that funded or proposed to be funded? General fund budget of about $1.7 million. And then it would require a bus purchase reserve proposition to be approved by voters to fund $680,000 of that, and that's approximately the balance in the bus purchase reserve fund. We haven't had to use that in recent years, but in terms of managing tax cap and other pieces within the budget, that is a tool that we have available to us to assist with some of these rising costs, the net cost, the local share of the EV bus as well, to play into that calculation.
Matt, with the cost of buses going up by but trade-in's not budged, right? That's 4,000 we budgeted 10 years ago, pretty much.
Yep, it's pretty much a salvage value on buses. We haven't seen those budge much between.
I want to buy one for $4,000.
Yeah, four to five on trade-in. We've sometimes even we've explored. We actually years back we actually did auction off one bus that we had kept for a year for other purposes, but that did not was not able to be utilized in that fashion once we found out some of the rules and regs. And it takes time to auction off a bus and sits on our lot, so that sometimes becomes a trouble when you have new buses coming in, and if we're hanging out, where do we put the buses? So that's the the trade-in piece tends to work well in the process, and it cleans it up and gets the buses off site without having to store them and go through those procedures as well. And then return was minimal compared to trade-in too. There wasn't a major difference overall. Yeah.
And Matt, just so I'm clear on it. So with the bus reserve, that's money that we've saved throughout the years. We've been able to, I know through your wizardry, haven't had to tap into that for bus purchase. And I know that I think when I was on audit and finance in previous years, like part of the talk of do we save it, do we use that money for EV buses? But it would seem to me that the cost of the EV buses, like we get more bang for our buck, and our taxpayers get more bang for our buck if we use it this year to buy the diesel buses. You can get basically 3 for the price of 1 instead of an EV bus with what we have saved in there. Is that right?
Yeah, so I mean it's all in terms of our long range planning. When we transition right now, based on legislation, to transition to the purchase of EV buses, currently the district's able to fund buses in the general fund, right? We've been able to do that. When transitioning to EV buses, they're changing the aid payment schedule to 12 years, which then means we essentially would most likely end up transitioning to a borrowing for buses over 10 years and having that proposition. Similar to other districts do that now in terms of their bus purchases, to try to smooth that payment and local share over the course of those 12 years. So it would basically be 1/12 of a payment against those buses in year one and get 1/12 back of the revenue that we'd receive. So we're probably going to have to consider a different strategy for purchasing buses, because buying $500,000 buses at 10 apiece in the budget with no supporting aid will result in a large exclusion to the tax cap. So
and the
more
bus,
than the bus purchase reserve would fund.
Right, and the bus and the current bus purchase reserve, statutory, like legally, we cannot add money to that. That is timed out what we can add to it. So that money that's there is what's there.
Correct. So the existing reserve, it dates back to 2002, I believe. I have it on a future slide, but it can no longer be funded. It's time bound and capped in terms of the dollar amount. So in order to fund a future bus purchase reserve, we would need to propose a new reserve to voters to create and establish that reserve to be available for future funding to help support the purchase of EV buses in local shares.
This board knows very well. There's more questions than answers with EV buses, and I know that we have an advocacy trifold out there, and I know that when we meet with our legislators and lawmakers, that this will be a key point of advocacy. It's more idealistic at this point in time than practical, as people are starting to ask questions that reveal that.
Yeah, all great questions. Thank you. You'll help me through the presentation here. Next piece, this is just gets its own slide because it just doesn't fit with some of the other two. I'd love to put it on a slide with others, but there's a lot of data on the other slides. This is just a line item for community service. It's more of a pass-through budget line to have the account code established. The facility use fees come in, evening use of the pool overall, so just a small dollar amount here. Next, employee benefits. So this would be employee benefits from our pension systems to our health and dental, our workers' compensation insurance, unemployment, life insurance. You can see in FICA Med, Social Security, costs for employer payment of taxes that we have to cover. Overall, the ERS pension system, that's our non-certificated employees, And that has an estimated average rate increase of 13.1% to 15.2%. Just a quick attention draw there. It's a greater than 2% increase. One of the exclusions in the tax cap is any pension rate growth over 2% receives an exclusion of the percentage difference of growth over 2%, so 0.1%. So that would be our employee retirement system employee salaries times 0.1% would be an exclusion within the tax cap. It amounts to approximately $20,000 to $25,000 in an exclusion in the cap calculation. We haven't seen that in probably over 10 years in an exclusion to either ERS or TRS for the pension rate increase. Overall, about a 22% increase in the ERS budget. Again, that's a factor of salary increases times the rate percentage. So it's not necessarily going to be a 2% increase in budget. It's going to be that compounded increase that we would see for salary increases times the contribution rate. Teacher retirement system projected to increase from 9.76% to 10.02%, and that results in an 11% increase to budget for our certificated employees. The FICA Med, about a 5% increase. That's 7.65% of salaries that we have to budget for to cover the FICA Med portion of wages. Workers' compensation, you see a larger increase here. We're part of a consortium. However, due to our experience, some years we've seen a decrease in our workers' compensation budget. Here we see an increase because the data that's utilized in the average increase over a few years, we have a small year dropping off and larger years in that mix. Over time, we would see potentially the rate or our cost for budget level out or decrease in some years. But again, this is based on Fairport's experience. So this is our cost of workers' compensation payments for our employees. Life insurance, unemployment, and disability, I see 0% increases in those pieces, not major changes overall to rates or costs. Health and dental, about a 2.92% increase. Factors in we budget for a projected rate in January of 2025. So projecting at about a 10% increase in the RASP 1 and 2 plans, as well as our Medicare Advantage plans. Now, the Medicare Advantage plan, there was a slight change to plans in the current year. So embedded within here is also a slight reduction in cost for the district for our Medicare Advantage plans that the county districts work together to try to offer a equal or better plan at some lower premiums overall. So that's also embedded within the health and dental budget. And then other benefits range from our cost for health savings accounts, flex spending accounts, our 403B administration, some of those different pieces fall under there, and then any payouts upon retirement for employees. Overall, about a 5.5% increase on the employee benefits. Next, we have the debt service and interfund transfers. So here, primarily, it's going to be related to the oncoming debt of the 2019 capital improvement project. So it's paid for in a couple of different ways. We have our short-term debt, and then we utilize the transfer to debt service fund for the long-term serial bonds debt that's in place. So here, our bond anticipation notes, about a 16.91% increase. I see it's about about $500,000 increase in that line, up to $3.3 million. The transfer to special aid, you see a decrease here. That's because it's really a budget reallocation for the general fund cost of our UPK programs. So there's a portion of the UPK programs that are funded by federal grant at $5,400 per pupil. Another advocacy point to try to get that reimbursement per pupil rate up for districts. It results in a local share within our budget. So that's really shifted over to the an instructional budget line rather than a transfer to our special aid fund. And then we have the transfer to debt service, increase about $1.2 million or 22.83%. And then our capital outlay project, which is the allowable $100,000 capital outlay project that we're able to get building aid on the very next year. So looking at and focusing on some work over at Northside and Dudley, looking to focus back on Northside for the flooring and work our way around the building to replace the flooring at Northside. So overall, between the debt service and the transfer to debt service fund, you can see that's about $1.7 million increase. As mentioned before, that's supported by $1.7 million in building aid on the revenue side of the budget. So it has to be reflected on each side.
And that capital outlay, 100,000, that's another advocacy point for us to raise that limit to, I think we've said 250 or just raise
Yes.
it so that.
Been asking for 250,000 for several years, so it'd be great. It's work that can only be done at one building, and 100,000 probably only gets you about 90 to 93,000 of construction, because you will have some architect engineering fees to design the work to go into SED, just like any other project. So here is a summary of all of the non-instructional pieces of the budget. The pieces Mr. Provenzano went through, general support, down through the interfund transfers and debt, for an overall increase of about 7.34% or $5.4 million. Again, big piece of that 5.4, 1.7 million is related to the debt. That's supported directly by a revenue of 1.7 million on the other side of the budget. Talked a little bit earlier about the bus purchase reserve fund. In order to spend funds out of the bus purchase reserve, there must be a voter proposition, just like a capital building project that we had to have authorized to be able to spend out of our capital building reserve. So again, we've seen this proposition on the budget before. We've been fortunate to not have to utilize it over several years, but back to try to support the tax cap calculation, as well as our local share impact and the bus purchases. So proposing to utilize $680,000 from the bus purchase reserve fund 2002 to purchase motor vehicles for use in student transportation. And then the second proposition would be just requesting the authorization to create a new reserve for future funding. Those are just the two pieces that are coupled together because the expiration of the old reserve in utilization in order to fund a future reserve. And next, I'll turn it back to Mr. Provenzano to talk about dates.
Sorry, Matt, can I ask one question real quick? With the proposition number 2, with funding the capital bus purchase reserve, why is it stated that way to create it and fund it? Like, is there a certain dollar amount that we're putting in, or is
No.
it just to give us authorization at the end of the year if we have surplus that we could put money in?
Yeah, it has to be worded that way to be able to fund it. So
Okay.
create and fund at a future date. So it could be at the end of the current fiscal year, it could be following fiscal year. It doesn't have to be every fiscal year. You just need the ability to be able to fund the reserve.
And with
So
that-
in a resolution, it'll actually talk about a little bit more specifics in terms of how it can be funded in terms of the different pieces, very similar to how we've created other capital building reserves.
Okay, that's my,
So,
my next question, so I'll wait to see the full wording.
Yeah, this
on
is
all
not.
that.
This
Thanks.
is just a quick snapshot summary. Proposition resolutions would need to be approved at the March board meeting because they have to be approved so many days in advance of the vote.
Mr. Stevens, really appreciate it. As you can see, we're moving through the budget process. The next budget conversation will be on March 7th. There'll be an instructional budget discussion at the board workshop. Again, that will be on our YouTube live station. I know that we'll be giving the board information in advance, and I'm looking forward to talking about our programming, the pieces that bring and really speak to our Fairport story. And then on March 19th, we'll be doing the same, presenting the actual instructional budget and the first draft of the budget. So board members will be able to see how the revenues, expenditures and revenues are coming together and some of those other pieces, if the board chooses to move forward, that we'll be putting forth in resolution. And there's going to be 2 more pieces added to this, as I alluded to earlier, in the form of budget communication, engagement with our community, again, getting under the hood of our budget, demystifying or debunking some of the components that people have lots of questions on. I know that's, again, just trying to explain factors that influence our budget. And we'll be adding those pieces. And then on April 16th, there'll be the budget adoption, the recommendation of a budget, and then hopefully the board will be able to adopt the budget, and then May 7th will be a public hearing, and on May 21st, the budget vote and board elections at Joanna Perrin Middle School in the gymnasium from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. And again, there'll be board elections during that time as well for 2 open seats. And that's all we have.
Brett, I just wanted to mention that the 2 additional community dates that you mentioned, I think as a board we appreciate that that has been added. It's something new, so it's not something that we've done in the past in our district. I know that we had a meeting, an opportunity for people to come and listen a couple of weeks ago, and we did not see great attendance. It was just us.
We had great attendance.
Yeah,
and I think it's just taking a look at the feedback that we get and just
that's-
looking at it differently and,
Yes.
and trying to look under the hood of the budget rather than talk about the value of our schools, which we always are doing. And I think and I'm proud to talk about the value of our schools, but I think there are community members out there who want
Yeah,
to know,
more.
the inner workings and, how we compare and, some very important factors that are part of the expenditure and revenue components.
Yeah,
of the
but I
budget.
just appreciate kind of thinking outside the box, realizing that what we maybe have done in the past, it doesn't work as much anymore.
We'll see.
So
We'll
yeah,
look
I
forward to
know.
it.
So
Yeah,
hopefully, yeah.
Yeah, and I think next year we'll get a earlier start on it too, and but
But
we're just
again,
trying to respond. Thank
yep,
you.
trying to respond to the
Thank you.
community.
Any other questions? Thanks for listening. Thank you again, Mr. Stevens, and your team.
Okay, so we will move on to our board discussion and action items. So up first, we have field trips, and I need a motion to approve the attached field trip requests.
So moved.
Brian, Mary Caitlin, any discussion? I know we often like to say we love field trips. Excited.
So many arts and music field trips and theater field trips.
It's awesome.
Yep.
Isn't it cool? Yep.
So glad
And the
that we.
HBCU trip is on there too.
It is, yep. I was going to mention that, so thank you. RPO, yeah, and robotics, so just got a lot, which is great, so. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 7-0. We do not have any first read policies because we actually have our meeting on Friday, so you'll probably see a lengthy list at our March business meeting. So we're to the second reads for policy. So I need a motion that the Board of Education approves the second reading of the following policies: 1510, 7313, 7314, 7550, 7551, and 2110.
So moved.
Mary Caitlin? Second. Jan? Discussion? I know we already did the first read, so I think we're good. Okay. All in favor? Aye. And we did add this to our discussion area, but I do, what? Yeah. We do need a motion that the board accepts the single audit report for year ended June 30th, 2023 as attached.
So moved.
Brian? Nicole? Discussion.
Do you mind if I read one line from the audit?
No, nope. I was gonna call on you, so.
I guess I have In our opinion, this is from our auditors, in our opinion, the district complied in all material respects with the compliance requirements referred to above that could have a direct and material effect on each of the major federal programs for the year ended last school year. I just point that out because from time to time we hear people think our federal funds might be in jeopardy, but every single year for 12 years, right, we've had an extremely clean audit. There is no jeopardy. Losing federal funds for us.
And if anyone's interested, you can read the whole report
Yep.
right on board docs here.
Right.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. 7-0. which leads us to the next audit report, which is extracurricular or classroom activity funds. So I need a motion that the board accepts the extra classroom activity funds financial report for the year ended June 30th, 2023 as attached. Lisa? Nicole? Discussion around this one? Similar, just kind of pointing out and wanting to make sure that folks listening can see it in the public content area of board docs, and that yes, our audits are clean.
And great lessons for the students and the student leaders and the clubs too. This is not only are the audits clean, but any of the corrective actions that are taken are great lessons, I think, for students who see the value in doing things, dotting the I's, crossing the T's. Peter can talk more eloquently about audits than I ever will be able to, but just what a great experience for students to be able to have this and to get this feedback in a constructive, positive way.
That's the fun of this audit. I
Yeah.
think it's fun,
Yeah.
right? Is that there's students involved and things you totally might, I don't want to say expect, but you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense when I was that age, type of thing.
I brought this up in the finance committee meeting, but does every club have the opportunity to see the results so they can say, show the treasurer, like, look, we audited your work and you did a great job? It's just to get that positive feedback and they can see that what they're doing actually matters and is
That would be a best
noticed.
practice. That would be a best practice. I mean, that would be
In
a best
theory,
practice,
yes.
and I have seen it. I've seen it work both ways. So yes.
What is the mechanism for that? Like, is this sent to all the club advisors whether or not there's corrective action for that club?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The building principals are then involved and bring in the club advisors, and it's rectified and remediated and processed with those.
So if there's no corrective action needed, does the club advisor still receive this?
I'm not, Mr. Stevens, if there is no corrective action.
If there's no corrective action, they wouldn't necessarily receive any notification. I can check with the treasurer to see whether or not we share the full report with the central treasurers. So the central treasurers are those at the building level, typically an administrative assistant in the building that's kind of managing all the book pieces and communicating then with the club advisors. And club advisors in turn would be communicating and working with the officers within the club. So I can communicate with the treasurer and see if we're just sharing back the report and encourage them to have those communications out within their buildings. I can't speak to whether or not they're having those conversations already.
It's a best practice.
Yeah, I think some do, but I don't know that everybody.
Yeah, I appreciate the effort.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 7-0. Which leads us to the next one. I need a motion that the board approves the corrective action plan for the extra classroom activity funds financial report for year ended June 30th, 2023 as attached.
So moved.
Brian?
Second.
Mary Caitlin? Discussion? I think we kind of covered it before. All in favor? Aye, 7-0. Up next, we have our New York State Comptroller audit report. Again, this is in the public content, so if you're home, you can check it out. I need a motion that the board accepts the December 2023 New York State Comptroller audit report as attached. Chan? Nicole?
Just as Pete liked to point out a quote, I'll pull a quote too. No fraud, waste, or abuse was identified, which of course we like seeing in audits. You want to see in an audits, but I think it is again worth calling out the good, the good in that. So I think that's a credit to Mr. Stevens and his team and the district as a whole for clean audits or good audits.
I apologize. Just one question. So this is not an annual audit. The comptroller doesn't do every district annually, right? So we have our internal audits that are always
Correct.
happening monthly, and then we have our outside auditors that are required, but we do for our full books, and then we pick I don't want to call it a special topic, but the topic to audit. This is something in addition.
Correct. So technically, the comptroller plans to visit school districts about every 5 years, and then they do a risk assessment process before they sit down and determine a focus area of what they're looking to audit. So We received notification, I want to say it was last spring,
It was last spring.
that they would be visiting Fairport to do a risk assessment and audit within district, and they were here for several months.
I was going to
up
say
in a
that they were here
conference
They were very
room.
thorough. Our last audit was probably about 9 years ago.
Yep. So they're, working to probably try to get back on a 5-year cycle. We haven't seen it in several years, but it's an unannounced visit to a district to do a risk assessment and focus area audit of what they look at. So here they selected, for the most part, payroll and, did a payroll and benefits and did it over a course of a 2-year period and extended their audit even further as they got through the process. So a lot of data collection that they come in and do and work closely with HR, payroll department, business office in terms of gathering a lot of information. So yeah, not a standard audit that the staff in the offices are prepared for. Giving data. The annual ones they know how that process works.
Yeah.
So this was just a little bit different.
So when you say this goes on for months, so this is a responsibility in addition for our team that they then have to take on. So I just very
Yes.
thankful for everyone.
Yep. Yeah, we're also appreciative of the staff in our office that really had to adapt and provide information to the comptroller.
Thank you.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. 7-0. And then I think we kind of talked about this, but I also need a motion that the board approves the corrective action plan for the December 2023 New York State Comptroller Audit Report as attached. Peter? Lisa? And just discussion point, yes, there isn't a whole lot on here, which is exciting. And you already mentioned that it was looking at human resources and payroll, which if you look at it, it is public comment or public content. There isn't a whole lot, which is excellent. Again, thank you. Okay, all in favor? Aye. 7-0. Which leads us to the long-awaited, but
Can't be long-awaited. We're doing it a month early.
we are. I'm teasing. So up next we have our school calendar, and I think I need a motion to approve the 2024-2025 school calendar. Brian, Nicole. Just a little discussion around this. I know that it will be put out to the community.
Yeah, so we're gonna be putting it out internally by tomorrow internally, just by sharing that the board approved it, and then we'll be sending it out to our printers and making sure that it's ready for public, because this is an internal outline at this point. So we'll be getting that hopefully by the end of next week and sharing it out to our community.
Yeah, during vacation, right? Maybe.
Well, it depends on how fast we could turn it over.
No,
so.
and it is a process. I just wanted to recognize that. So it's different in every school district. So I know I get a lot of questions about why did so-and-so share their school calendar and you haven't. Every district is different in how they go about approving the calendar. So as Brett mentioned, it will be internally first. And then we will move forward with sharing it with the public, and also just the caveat that it is a month earlier than it has been in the past. Usually we do this in March, so February is exciting. Okay, any other discussion? We're good? Okay, all in favor? Aye. 7-0. Which brings us to personnel. And first up, we have instructional. Need a motion to approve the following instructional staff actions as recommended by the superintendent of schools.
So moved. Second.
Oh, you were very quiet. Lisa and then Brian. Any discussion here?
This is one you might not want to take action on.
I agree, and
Yeah.
I was kind of going to hand it
Yeah.
to you because I know as a group we did look at this previously and saw a lot of retirements of teachers that are very beloved.
Yeah, there's 14 individuals listed on here that are, culture carriers, people that do so many amazing things for our school district, and we look forward to celebrating their amazing careers over the next several weeks. I know that we'll be doing something as a district to honor all of our retirees. There's a big graduating class, if you will, retirement class.
Well, what a tribute to our teachers that when we see this list every year, we're just
the names.
Heartbroken and grown because they are so incredible and have helped so many students, and we want them to keep it. We know the loss is what we're going to be saying, and we're thankful for everything they've done for us, for our kiddos.
I have been told by many of them that they will still coach and sub. So let's hope they're still around in some capacity. Right, Doug? Okay. All in favor? Aye. 7-0.
There you go. Noted.
Yes, I agree. Okay, next is non-instructional and civil service. I need a motion to approve the following non-instructional and civil service staff actions as recommended by the superintendent of schools. Mary Caitlin? Nicole? Any discussion here? Don't think so. Okay, all in favor? Aye. 7-0. Athletics. I need a motion to approve the following athletic staff actions as recommended by the superintendent of schools.
So moved.
Peter?
Second.
Brian? Discussion here? I am just going to highlight the fact that we have a girls flag football team. So I'm excited about that. It is, yeah. So I know that there was some student outreach last year when we were going for the budget approval, and we kept saying, well, if the budget passes. So we see it here. We see it here, which is great. All in favor? Aye, 7-0. And up next, I need a motion to approve the attached memorandums of agreements as recommended by the superintendent of schools. Jan? Nicole? All in favor? Aye. 7-0. Which brings us to our consent calendar. I'm not going to read through everything, but it is there. I need a motion to approve the consent calendar. Lisa? Jan? All in favor? Aye. 7-0. And up next, we are going to be moving to executive session. So I need a motion to enter into executive session to talk about matters pertaining to discipline of a particular person. And we invite the superintendent of schools, Brett Provenzano, to join us. I will just let anyone viewing from home, I'm sure there's lots of you, that after we enter executive session, we will then reconvene just to adjourn. So there won't be anything after that. You don't need to stay patiently waiting to hear from us. So I need a motion. Brian? Lisa? All in favor? Aye. Thank you.